I want to welcome everyone. This is a special episode of the Drexel interview that we're holding with a live audience for the first time in Mitchell Auditorium at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And it's a great honor to have here today two former mayors of our great city. Some quick background on our guests for our television audience. Ed Rendell was mayor of Philadelphia from 1992 to 2000 and governor of Pennsylvania from 2003 to 2011. In between, he was chairman of the Democratic National Committee. He now teaches at the University of Pennsylvania and is a commentator for various news organizations, I believe. Michael Nutter was a mayor of Philadelphia from 2008 to 2016. And he is now teaching at Drexel University and at Columbia University. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start by going back to your time when you entered the mayor's office, each of you. One in 1992, the other in 2008. And I wonder if you would tell us, looking back, what you found to be the most pressing issue, the most important problem that you felt you had to face when you entered office. Governor Rendell, please first.
I will say that I think Philadelphia was at its low ebb when I became mayor, and that is both a challenge, but it's a great opportunity. The citizens knew by that time how deep a hole we were in, and it allowed us, the mayor and council together, to do things which we might not have been able to get away with doing for the citizens if things weren't perceived to be in such crisis conditions. So I think in some ways, as bad as conditions were, I had an easier time making progress because that was so well known than Mike did when he became mayor.
Okay, so I'll pass that question on to you.
Having had the experience as a city council member and watching what Governor Rendell and Mayor Rendell at the time and his team did to deal with the city's financial crisis, which was not worldwide, but a more localized financial challenge. It was a huge wave of reform, and people were excited, and all of this. And I mean, those are the things that I ran on. And but you still have an election to get through, and you have to respect the voters. And there's a general election. But we started, quietly having some conversations. In the meantime, what we didn't know was that in November after I won, in December of 2007, we now know that the Great Recession started. Of course, that was not in any of the briefing papers. That was never a part of the transition report because we didn't know. And so, we came in, people are excited, we pass a budget, and by the summer of 2008, it is pretty clear that something is drastically wrong, but we don't know what it is. And it was not until September that the federal government announced that we actually were in a recession, a worldwide recession, and we started doing many of the same strategies and techniques that I learned from 1992 under then Mayor Rendell. We did many of those things and some other things. And so when I think about this, a tale of two mayors, and think about that 16-year span between a localized financial crisis and a worldwide financial crisis, and you see many of the same strategies being used. And I was able, though, to build on much of what then Mayor Rendell did to not only get out of the crisis, but then move the city to the point where it is today.
That's interesting. So there was a kind of repetition compulsion there.
Unfortunately.
So in terms of what you were able to accomplish, what do you see as your greatest success, each of you? I wonder if there's a parallel there as well.
In 1991, when I was running for mayor, people had pretty much given up on Philadelphia. The general consensus was Philadelphia was going to become the next Detroit, and that everyone who could get out was getting out. Businesses who could get out were getting out. People who could afford to move out of the city were moving to South Jersey or the Philadelphia suburbs. We were hemorrhaging people, we were hemorrhaging jobs, but most of all, nobody believed in the city anymore. Nobody believed in the city government, and nobody believed that the city had a future. And if you were to ask me the one most enduring thing that we were able to do was not balance the budget, was not make all the structural changes, was not rev up the economy. But over a course of time, and actually fairly rapidly, we made people believe in the city again. We made people believe that the city could be a great place to live again. We restored confidence in the business community. We restored confidence in the effectiveness and the competence of the city government. And we changed the whole mental outlook towards the city 180 degrees. And it was a terrific accomplishment and one that I value more than anything else. And when I see what's gone on under Mayor Nutter, we had the first population gain. People were saying that the city's population would continue to erode. The young people who've come back to the city in the last 10 or 12 years has been amazing.
So for you, Mayor Nutter, do you also feel there was an emotional component to your success?
When I came in, the two biggest issues, I mean, there are always a lot of issues in a campaign, but by 2006, 2007, the two big drivers in the papers most days were either crime or corruption. And there were some challenges that the city was facing. And so, we balanced the budget. We came out of the recession, did a bunch of things. We'll talk about some of the more positive things. But I think it was restoring a sense of pride and ethics in city government, and that we could actually do something about public safety. And in my last 3 years, 13, 14, and 15, last 3 full years, the homicide rate was half of what it was in 1990, down at 247. The following year, 248, and another below 300 in our last year. And so, again, it was a sense that we could actually do something about crime, and that the overwhelming majority of public servants are actually hardworking, good, honest people. And if there were some who weren't, we would find them.
I think you're absolutely right that there was a change in spirit that started with Governor Rendell. And that has, I feel it's palpable about wanting to live in Philadelphia. And the thing is that we have this influx of young people. We have older people, retiring people now pouring into the city. My question to you is, what about that middle group, that group with young children who still seem, and I know, Mayor Nutter, you made schools one of your big issues. Those young people with young children are still tending to move to the suburbs. What's your thoughts on that?
You go first.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Public education is a critical component to stabilizing, maintaining, and growing your population. And what people want is high-quality options, educational options, whether it's a district-managed school, a charter school, Catholic school, religious school, or a private. We have all of that in Philadelphia. And I have long believed, notwithstanding the many challenges that the school district has faced over time, and the champion of public education at the state level during his time there, and obviously did some work as mayor, but you have much more leverage as governor, was Governor Rendell. I think, what do you have, 7 or 8 budgets that, and this is, he knows, I mean this, this is actually a compliment. So I just need to build it up a little bit. Virtually every budget that Governor Rendell tried to pass when he was in Harrisburg, virtually every one of them went past the deadline.
All 8.
And some can criticize it. But the reason they went past the deadline is because he drew a line in the sand and said, until you give me more educational funding for public schools across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I'm not signing that budget. He was an education champion as governor when you have that kind of leverage, and it made a big difference. And so, we have 67, 68% of our high school students graduating from high school on a 4-year basis. 25% of our young people now with college degrees, and more staying here in the city. And so, as mayor, even though you're not directly in charge of public schools, I took the position, these are my kids, I pick up their parents' trash, we should have something to say about the quality of education that they're receiving. And so I think with just, better promotion of the high-quality schools that we have. I think many of our parents still don't necessarily know that there are high-quality schools, not just in Center City, but in many parts of the city of Philadelphia. And we have our challenges, no question about it. Funding's not the only thing, but it more oftentimes than not usually beats whatever is in second place.
So you're optimistic about the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I share that optimism. I always used to say when I was mayor that our schools get a bad rap because they are confronted with the social problems that our students bring in the front door of our schools. We have good, dedicated teachers, mostly across the board. We've got pretty good administrators as well. Our current superintendent who came in under Mayor Nutter's, Dr. Hyde is fabulous. He's terrific. And the interesting thing is, the pattern that you described, young people come into Philadelphia to live, mostly downtown, to the expanding downtown, which now is the second biggest downtown population of any city in America. We just went past Chicago. Only the borough of Manhattan has a larger downtown population, residential population. So the young kids come in, they're single. They get married, they stay in Center City. They have a baby, they stay in Center City. Then their kids begin to become elementary school age, and too often they leave, not understanding that we've got the best high school in the state. The high school kids get the highest college board scores in the state in Masterman, not far from Center City. The gap we've got to breach is that middle school gap. If we can do that, then there's no reason why you can't send your kids to, and again, we don't want everybody to live in Center City, obviously. And as Mayor said, but we've got some terrific, McCall School out in Mount Airy is a good elementary school. So I think the schools get a reputation worse than they deserve, and they don't promote themselves well, as the Mayor said.
I think that it's an interesting point. But I want to move on to development. And you talked about development earlier, and it seems that it's booming in Philadelphia. And particularly here in West Philadelphia, President Fry has been very much involved. I mean, it's our 125th anniversary for Drexel, and part of that is this Schuylkill Yards initiative, the Promise Zone in West Philadelphia. I'm wondering if you could address what you see will be the change in the whole nature of the city, the configuration of the city when these projects, which are beginning to be launched, begin to be realized.
When you're a mayor and you look at how you can economically grow your city, you look at its strengths. And one of our strengths was the Port of Philadelphia. So I, as mayor and governor, spent a lot of time trying to develop our port because those are well-paying, blue-collar jobs that you can hold without having a college degree. Longshoreman and trucker. Those jobs pay $70, $80, $90, $100,000 a year with overtime. Good jobs, excellent jobs. Our hospitality industry. Our hospitality industry has grown. We now have about 25 more hotels in downtown Philadelphia than we did in 1991. And each of those hotels employs 400 or 500 people. Not in the necessarily the highest paying jobs, but every time you post a hospitality job, $35,000 a year with benefits, you'd be amazed at how many people show up to apply for those jobs. And then thirdly, eds and meds. Eds and meds will always be the strength of this city. We are blessed with great educational institutions. We are blessed with great medical institutions. And not only do they attract bright young people to their classrooms and great teachers, but they attract a tremendous amount of research money, and they employ literally thousands and thousands of people. Development in an educational center is worth much more than even development downtown or development in one of our neighborhoods, because it spawns so much, it motivates so much other growth.
Right, the synergy between these young people and the new developments.
The colleges and universities and the medical community are economic engines in and of themselves. And so, as the governor said, I talk with a lot of mayors today. I tell them the first thing to do is do a scan of the assets of your city. It may not be education and medicine. Every place is going to be different. You don't try to do what we do. We're not going to try to. I never had envy I mean, you're envious of different things that happen in a place, but I never said, hey, we should be like so-and-so. We're Philly. I want to be Philly, right? We have our own, our thing and our style. And when you have 5 medical centers, 5 medical schools, 1 out of every 5 doctors in the United States of America will do some part of his or her training in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That's quite a
101
statistic. I didn't
colleges
know
and
that.
universities. 400,000 young people get an education.
And virtually
tri-state area.
every veterinarian in the state of Pennsylvania, which is a big agricultural state,
Yep.
went to the University of Pennsylvania Vet School.
This has been very
kind of pro-Philly.
boosterish. So we have to take another turn and think about, because the two of you, I find it fascinating hearing you talk. You're clearly such collaborators. You work very well together. And yet, the criticism...
I never really liked them that much.
Oh, okay.
We never really got along. This is the best we've ever been in 30 years. No.
But the criticism about Philadelphia that persists is that there is difficulty with collaboration, that there is a certain rivalry, infighting, insularity among institutions and certain leaders. And this has persisted for decades. And I'm wondering how you would address that. Is that a major problem, do you think, in taking Philadelphia to that next level?
I think there may have been, there were times when the biggest political problem was city council and the mayor not getting along. Philadelphia is the only city that owns a gas works. Mayor Nutter wanted to sell it and use the proceeds to take care of a lot of the problems that the city faced. For reasons that I couldn't fathom, because I was in Harrisburg and saw it from afar, city council balked and screwed it up, so the eventual bidder withdrew. And we still own a gas works, and it's awful. But by and large, Mayor Nutter had a solid relationship with city council, but that was one example of where failure to collaborate hurt us desperately. The business community, I wouldn't say collaboration has been their problem. They've collaborated with the government at times in moving the city forward. Certainly, both of us got great support from the business community. The business community, though, has tended to be a little reluctant to wade in and make political change. And in terms of the university and college community and the medical community, yeah, there's been some rivalries, and collaboration would have moved us forward faster. But when you look at the collaborative efforts between Penn and Drexel to make this an area that rivals the research triangle, I think a lot of that is dissipated.
The system is built on a certain amount of tension and conflict. I think it can be very healthy. Something better can come out of it. I think where it crosses a line sometimes is if it becomes personal, or if efforts, like the governor mentioned, if something is thwarted for almost non-legitimate reasons. And clearly, with regard to the business community, and I enjoyed tremendous support, both when I was in city council and as mayor, but I think our business community on some issues could wade in deeper, be more forceful. Look, I understand. I mean, the whole business environment has changed. So you had champions of industry who lived in the city or in the suburbs, but I mean, it was their thing, and got actively engaged and involved. Now, you usually have a regional president who reports to the vice president of wherever, who reports to somewhere in South Dakota or North Carolina or wherever. And they have to focus on how are we making money, running our business, et cetera, et cetera. Why do I need to get involved, in some instances, in the local political activity? I'll support the arts, I'll support the orchestra, I'll do all of those kinds of things. But some of this nitty-gritty, get your hands dirty, people pissed off at you and upset with you next week, it's like, why would I get involved in that? So, I mean, I understand it, but we still need that leadership.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, well put.
Just
I really have to ask Governor Rendell, which he liked better, which was more fun, being mayor or being governor?
Not even close. Mayor is much more fun. Mayor is much more fun because you're the first responder. And for people like Michael and myself, we enjoy challenges. And anything that happens in the city, you're awakened by phone, it hits your desk, and you have to take immediate action. There's no time to study. Sometimes you have to shoot from the hip. And it's very visceral, and the mayor dominates the TV market because it's one market, obviously, the city. And the mayor is often, as Mayor Nutter was and I was, on TV 3 or 4 times a night. And you can make things happen by force of personality because you get that incredible bond with your constituents through TV, through your personal appearances. You can go everywhere in the city because even though it's a big city, it's small enough you can reach everywhere. And after a while, people begin to expect you to do everything. I said by my 8th year as mayor, I said if they reported that a meteor was hurtling from space directly to hit Philadelphia, the citizens wouldn't be worried. They'd say, Mayor Rendell will find some way to stop it.
That was
Now,
your reputation.
as governor, you're remote. You're the last line of defense. You're never the first responder. There are 6 TV markets. You can't get around the state. It's such a huge state geographically that you can't get things done just by force of personality or by your persuasiveness. The only thing that balances the scales a little bit is, as governor, you have the resources to do some things about problems that you don't have as mayor. As mayor, Mayor Nutter did some very ingenious things to pump extra money into the schools. We passed the liquor by the drink tax, which was very hard when we were in council and I was mayor. But that's a tiny little piece of the budget. As governor, I was able to give the state of Pennsylvania, in my 8 years, the state of Pennsylvania's education, the dollars the state gave to education to our public schools went up by almost $5 billion. Philadelphia was getting, in my 8th year as mayor, $600 million more from the state than it got my first year as mayor. You know, and so having those resources makes up for not being the visceral first responder. But in terms of fun, mayor any day.
Well, you like people. You like that interaction with the city. You're both educators now. You're both dealing with students. You know, Columbia, Drexel, Penn. And I wonder what you think about the future citizens of this country and the future leaders based on what you're seeing in the classroom.
They are energized, they want to be engaged, they are, you know, whole hashtag resist, all this kind of activity. And I think, quite frankly, there has been, for many students, regardless of campus or persuasion, a recommitment to public policy, an interest in public service, paying much more attention to what's going on, and that almost as if there's been a clarion call to get engaged and serve in community. And so I am tremendously optimistic about the young people. I've seen it on this campus. I see it at Penn and at Columbia and a number of other schools where I've spoken in recent months. So it's an interesting time, but it's an exciting time with young people.
The only thing I'd add to that, I think the mayor's absolutely correct. In the 90s, most of the best and the brightest students wanted to go to Wall Street and become millionaires before they were 30. Now I think a lot of the best and the brightest students are dedicated to doing something with their lives that can help change other people's lives. There are more young people running for office. When I was governor, I continued my teaching at Penn, and one of my students 2 years later was elected to the legislature from Delaware County as a Republican. He was a good student. He had taken my course, but he was the kid who came to Penn basketball games dressed as a hot dog. He literally dressed as a hot dog.
Well, we're going to have to end the questions here, but I want to say, from my own point of view, having taught for 30 years here at Drexel, that I see precisely what you describe, an increased commitment to social service, to good works, to civic engagement, and to really engaging with other people in a compassionate way, which I think makes me very optimistic as well. And hearing the two of you makes me feel great about the city. So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you, mayors, governor.
You know, the difficulty in calling me governor as opposed to mayor, I've always said, and it's true, not only which job I enjoy most, but if you woke me from a deep sleep at 3:15 in the morning and put a flashlight in my face and said, "Who are you?" I would respond, Mayor Rendell. without question.
And Mayor, I would only suggest if that happens, you should immediately call the police.